range of motion. When I hear that coaches don't, in the weight room, that they have problems with some of the injuries that they see, it's because that they're not training range of motion in their weight room. A lot of strength coaches like to train the movements on the field, but I believe in order to keep them out of this training room here, you got to go a little bit beyond that. You got to train for the stuff that the stuff that you can't really for lack of a better word, can't really all put it together, and athletes get put in all kinds of bins and different range of motions, so you have to help them out with the strength in the range of motion. It's not just range of motion, it's how strong they are in those vulnerable areas. So what he's going to tell you a little bit about is the relationship between injuries and range of motion, and some of the things that we can do to correct that. And we talked about the hip flexor. We see a lot of problems with the hamstring, the glute hams, and the lower back. So there's a lot of issues right here with the core. Again, it's the same stuff that we went over. So he tells us just a little bit about range of motion and some of the injuries that might come in because of lack of.
Yeah, like we went over earlier, when I was testing Jalen's hamstrings and hip flexors, if you notice the lack of range of motion there, that should be, if there's a limit that's not within the normal range of motion that you would see, that can predispose you to an injury when you're out there in normal running or sprinting, any kind of, or soccer movement, for example. If you don't have the proper range of motion, then those muscles are either going to give out or going to have to work hard, and you're going to get a chronic type of strain. So, in other words, to sum all that up, we'll have, after we do that assessment and we find a limited range of motion, I'll take the athlete through some stretches to kind of, over time, regain the range of motion that they need. So, Jalen's going to be our model here again. So, for instance, if Jalen had a tight hamstring muscle, which was the last test that, for the one right before the push-up that we tested him on, if he had tight hamstrings, I would get him in a seated position, just face this way, Jalen, and let's stop that just a little bit. And with this right leg hang off, this will be a stretch for his left hamstring. So what he'll do is he'll squeeze this quadricep muscle real good tight to keep the knee good straight. Sit up good and tall, he's going to lean forward at the hip joint, and he doesn't have to touch his toes or get to a certain point. As long as he's feeling stretch in the back of his leg, that's elongating those hamstring fibers, okay? And hopefully the idea over time is to lengthen that to where when he's in a fluid running motion, he's not getting opposition in those muscles. Another one would be on the opposite of the hamstrings, the hip flexor itself. So if Jalen had a tight hip flexor that we assessed earlier, I'll get him in an even position to stretch that. And if we were wanting to stretch his left hip flexor, I'll have him bring his right foot up. Okay? And what I want him to do first, since one of our hip flexor muscles originates from the spine, is I'm going to have him do a pelvic tilt. Trying to rotate his hips back toward the spine. You can see through the belt here, he's rotating that belly button back toward the spine. And what that does is already puts the hip flexor on tension. Once that's good and tight, I'll have him shift his hips forward and feel even more of a stretch right through the hip flexor here. And then thirdly, to get even more of a stretch, I'll have him reach the same side arm to the sky. He's getting a stretch all the way through the torso here, through the hip flexor range, okay? So that would be a good stretch for the hip flexors. Variation of that to get more of the adductors and the groin, just be simple to shift to more of a diagonal motion, okay? Just play with different angles there to get centered onto the area of the muscle you want to stretch. Now for strengthening, the core, we talked about the test for the core. If I want to do some core strengthening, I always start out with the athlete in a supine position and basically just have them do a pelvic tilt. I want to come over here with the camera a little bit. Sorry. So what I want Jalen to focus on is to flatten out that curvature of the low back here, okay? And to do that, he's got to tighten these ab muscles and basically drive his belly button down into his spine. So what I try to tell patients is either drive the belly button down in the spine or pretend there's a string from your chest to your belt. You want to shorten that string. So he's got to rotate here and tighten up. He'll hold that there and relax. Okay, so you see that hip kind of rotate. So we'll have an athlete do sets of 10 up to 30 of these to try to work on tightening there. Once they can get the grasp of that, I'll have them work on incorporating the hip flexor with it. So I'll have them do a pelvic tilt, and I'll have him just bend his knee up, slide his knee back. So he's working on keeping this good and tight while he's activating his hip flexor. Going back down. And then you just graduate from there. You have him bend his leg up for support, do the pelvic tilt, and keep this leg straight, do straight leg raise, okay? A little bit harder that way because you got more torque there. Okay. So that's just one of the hip flexor strengthening.
The reason why we're talking about hip flexors is because it's so hard to train in the weight room. It's very easy to forget about it because as an athlete, you want to work on hip extension, not hip flexion. You got cleans, you got triple extension snatches. You've got all kinds of things that you can do for hip extension, but not hip flexion, unless you're doing a lot of sprinting mechanic work or doing wall runs or doing stuff like that. But there is some things that you can do to help you out, just like he said. So I appreciate you guys, and maybe one day you can come back after being in Jackson State and help us out again.